Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another session. With lots of art and fun stuff. So, as you all know, today we will be doing a garden theme painting, but not on paper, on wooden spoons, which I'm sure you guys have picked up the kits um, from Iramu. So I don't know exactly what you have in the kits, but you should have a wooden spoon, um, and then some paints, and probably a brush or so. So that's what we're going to use. I know you have limited colors, so I will be using limited colors. And you really don't need a whole lot of colors. You can still come up with some amazing designs. Yeah, they're great for decoration. They're great for gifting. Um, yeah, and it's also a great medium for you to practice on when you're using acrylic. Yeah, you it's not just canvas. You can use it on a great deal of products and surfaces, and um, that's what this activity will show you. Okay, now I'll switch my camera to what I have here. I'll show you, and then we'll start. Okay, so I have these are some spoons that I did before, um, different colors, just to give you a bit of idea. These are very illustrative. Um, we are going to do a different style today, but I'm showing you this so you know what the end product might look like. Okay, so um, so that's one with a green and black base, and that's another one with pink, black, and white. Okay, so different kinds of designs and different colors. I mean, there is no end to the possibilities of designs you can create. Okay, so these are a few of the previous ones. Um, I have sprayed this once I painted and once it dried, I sprayed these spoons with a sealer, which I recommend when you're using paint on a surface other than uh, canvas when it comes to acrylic. But yeah, it's totally optional. This I sprayed, but there's some other ones. I think, oh, this one, which I haven't sprayed. And I just let it dry for several weeks, and now it's completely dry. Of course, you can't cook with it, but they're definitely for decorative purpose. Um, yeah, but if you do want to ensure that the paint is permanent and it won't come off, even if it's for decorative purposes. If there's water spill on it, or if someone tries to scrape on it, it shouldn't come off. So that's why I recommend that you use a sealer or let it dry for a long period of time. Okay, so those are a few of the ones that I created. Okay, so for the activity today, what I have is this wooden spoon. Okay, this is not the original color. I painted it with what color should I say? Um, like a very cream sort of a thing, cream color, I would say. So I've given it a coat, a single coat, um, with a cream color, and then I just let it dry. Um, and yeah, and then I will be using another coat of paint on it. And then I've got some brushes, some flat brushes, and some round tip brushes, filbert brushes. Yeah, just grab whatever brush you have available and you can work with it. And then I've got a pencil to draw my designs on it, permanent markers. Any permanent markers will do. I use Sharpie a whole lot of times. A little bit of water, okay, just in case, to dampen my brush. Yeah, some kitchen towels and some tissues. I always have this handy when I'm using paint, any kind of paint for that matter. Um, Palette, and then some colors. So I haven't taken a whole lot of colors, keeping in mind that you might not have a lot available. So I have this yellow ochre, and they're they're the same colors. Okay, the lemon yellow colors and this yellow ochre. And then I've got two different kinds of greens, a light green and a deep green. And then I've got this crimson, red. Okay, um, so these are the colors that I will be using. All right, that's all I've got. Let's get started. Okay, so what we will first do is, let's see, what I'm going to do is first try and do the design on this one. Okay, as you know, we will do a garden theme, simple designs, nothing major because you want to paint and this is a different kind of surface. So simple design um, like a, yeah, like a twig of leaves. So something like a twig can be straight. Can you see? No, I think it's a little too light. I'll show you with a pen so you can see the design. So something like a straight line, and then you can have small leaves on it, very basic. Okay, so leaves can be just like that. And then on the other side, I usually do bigger leaves on the top and smaller at the bottom. You can do the same if you like, don't want to change the sizes, perfectly fine. And then if you want, you can draw a bird. Um, so a simple bird design that I like to do when it comes to illustrative artworks like this goes like this. I'll show you when I draw it on here, but this is just a rough surface. Something like that. And then you can make the mouth or the beak a little pointy and the belly a little broader, and then the tail. So something like that, very, very basic, okay? But the trick is, the reason why I'll be using basic figures is because we're drawing on a different surface. And the kind of wooden spoon I'm using, I guess you have the same kind of wooden spoons, but some wooden spoons have a smooth surface. But the kind I'm using, it's got the fiber quite prominent, okay? So if you have those kinds, it can be a little bit difficult. So that's why let's keep the design simple. Okay, now I'll start from this side, from the end, and then I'm going to draw the leaf, the twig with leaves on it. And I'll do bigger leaves at the top and smaller as I go down, also because it's becoming narrow towards the neck of the spoon. Okay, that's how it should look like. All right, and then I'll move on to the larger surface, and I'm going to draw some birds. and a couple of more twigs of the same design. Now I will be painting it over. The reason why I'm drawing on it is to see how it feels without any freshly painted surface big at the back. So that's why I'm going to draw and um, understand where exactly I want to place the design. Okay. If you have the time, you can paint on it first. You can let it dry for a couple of days, and then you can draw on it once again. Yeah. That will be the ideal procedure, but we don't have the time for that. Um, so that's why I'm drawing on it first to understand where exactly I want to place the designs. Okay. Now let's do the birds. So you can do two birds, one bird, however you like. I'm going to do two. That's the first one. Keep in mind that you can't really erase on these surfaces. So try to be slow and steady with your design so you don't have to make mistakes. Just try your best not to. Okay. So that's another one. And then the twigs from here. I'll do another one here. Okay. So that's how it looks like. Now, this is totally optional, but I'm going to take masking tape and put around the neck of this wooden spoon just to separate the design. Or if I'm painting it over, which I will be, just to separate the paint from that part coming into this part. Okay. This is optional. If you don't have a masking tape, that's totally fine. And you can also draw the section with your pencil. Sorry. And then when you're painting it, just prevent the paint from coming over. I just find this process to be easier with the masking tape, and that's what I'm doing. Okay, so that's it. Now, if you want, you can add more birds, but I'm going to leave it like that and see how we go with the paint. Okay, now I will be painting this green, but what I have in mind is I might use two different kinds of greens, one for this bottom part and one for this top bit, which is why I use the masking tape. Yeah. All right. So I will be using a dark green for the bottom part. Okay, I might just take some more paint. And then for the top bit, I will be using a light green. Now with the light green, I will be adding a little bit of this lemon yellow just to make it lighter and also to make the texture a little bit thicker. What I've seen is when you use um, acrylic paints, which are not deeply pigmented, like light greens or yellows, and if you mix them together, they bring up a better consistency in the pigment. They're more opaque um, compared to the single colors. Okay, so that's what I have here. Okay, let's actually do the top bit and then I'll do the bottom bit. Okay, so mixing up the light green with the yellow green. If you don't have those colors, that is fine. Just use the color that you've got. Okay, but if you happen to have that combination, go for it, mix it, see how it looks like. And when I'm applying the paint on it, the fiber is coming top to bottom, so I will move my brush like that, top to bottom. And as you can see, with the first coat of paint, well, this is the second, but the first coat of the green paint, your pencil mark still appears. Okay, you can still see it. So that makes it easy for you to start making the design. And you also know what it looks like. You also know the texture with the green paint. So that's why I prefer when you have less time, I recommend using this process. Taking some more paint. Now, if in case you're using the combination that I am using, so I am taking, I would say 1/4 of yellow and 3/4 of green. So it's green predominantly. And I'm just trying to thicken the texture of the paint or the consistency of the paint. Now, when you're painting something like this, like a spoon, which you need to hold, right? It's not a canvas or a paper um, which you can mount somewhere, and you don't need to use your hands to hold it while you paint. Be careful as to which part you paint, which part you allow to dry, and which part you hold. So that's why I started with the top part, so it's easy for me to hold. And then once this part is done, then I can paint this bit here. Paint the edges. Make sure the texture is uniform. If there is any buildup of paint, distribute it, brush it across, and remove excess paint. Just remove it if you see there's some excess paint. As the paint dries and thickens, you will see that your drawing have become a little less visible, but that's fine. At least you know where you've placed your designs, and you can, if you need, you can always redraw it, but I just needed to roughly know where exactly my design is. Okay, so that finishes the top part of the spoon. All right, now I will start painting this part. Okay. All right. Now I'm just trying to find a surface where I can rest this on. Okay. Yep. All right. So I'm just taking a random surface. It's just a whiteboard eraser, and I'll rest this on it. Try to rest on the edge side so you don't smear the colors and the paint. So just like that. Okay. You can use anything around the house to rest it while it dries. Okay, now I'm going to do the bottom part. So I've got dark green color, and a dark green is quite a pigmented color. So I won't be using a secondary color on it. Okay. Try not to use too much paint, purely because it will take a lot of time to dry. Now this little patch that I created with the masking tape, another purpose of it, as you can see, is it helps you to create a section where there won't be any paint, so you can hold the spoon comfortably. Okay. Don't forget the edges once again. Make sure you drag across any extra paint and spread it. Remove all the buildup. Okay. Okay. And that's it. All right. Don't worry about any small patches that you're not happy about, or if the paint hasn't gone in very smoothly, or if it is come off or something like that. Don't worry about those little patches, because this is my second layer on top of the cream that I showed you at the beginning. But for you, this is your first layer. And Yeah, once it dries up, you can always go for a second layer or a second coat of color and make it more permanent and bright. Yeah. All right. Okay, let's see if this part is dried. It has, not a lot, but it has. Okay. Um, all right. Now I will be drawing the designs or painting the designs that I've created. So I'm taking some red. And I will also create the leaves with a bit of green. Okay, so I'll take some more green on my palette and some yellow. All right. Okay, now I'm going to take a thin brush. So I've got this, there's a thin brush. I'm just looking for a thinner brush. Yeah, so I'm taking a thinner brush like this, quite narrow and pointy. All right. Okay. Now I will paint the leaves. Can you see? Let me bring camera a little closer. Okay. So I'll paint the leaves with dark green. I'll try and hold it like this so you can see better. If you don't have a pointy brush like I have, you can still create the same sort of leaves, but they can be a little bit thicker, a little bit bigger, and that's perfectly fine. When you are working with paint on a surface like this, um, it is a good idea to figure out how you can apply the paint and how big your subjects will be, um, so that you can paint on it comfortably. And to be honest, that is something that you should have an understanding for any sort of mediums, be it paint or be it um, if you're using pastels or if you're using color pencils. You should understand how big or small the surface will be and whether it's going to be comfortable for you to paint on it, whether you should make the subject a little bit bigger so you can apply the paint more comfortably. Okay. All right, so that completes the first twig. Just apply some more paint to a few of the twigs. Okay. Now moving on to the second set of twigs. I'm, I'm also drawing the stem with the same green, as you can see. If you have a black marker, you can do the stem with a black marker as well. Make sure it's a permanent marker, otherwise it will wash off if there is a splash of water on it. Okay, onto the leaves. All right. Just painting the last few leaves. Okay. All right, so that finishes the leaves. Okay. Now I'll let it dry for a minute while I wash my brush. All right, now what I might do is leave that section to dry a little more, and then start painting the stem, the long twig of leaves in the stem. In the stem, as in the handle of the spoon. And now, because I have used a dark paint on it, if you have also used a dark paint on it, you will see that your drawing isn't visible like mine. Once the paint is dried, you can't see it much, but that's okay. Like I said, as long as you know where exactly to place, and it will show a little bit, but not as much. Okay, now let's see. Try to find a comfortable position so I can let this dry and I can also paint. Yep, okay, it's dried well. All right, now I'm taking my yellow. If you don't have yellow, use any other color that you have. I will be working with yellow, green, and red in this project. But if you have a lighter color or any light color for that matter, that will create the contrast on a dark green surface, please use that. Okay, so I'll show you, I'll draw the stem of the twig and then I'll demonstrate rest of the painting. Okay, so that's how I drew the stem, a wobbly line. And now I'll start drawing the leaves. So I'm going to draw the whole design in yellow. Now I recommend you not to use any water in this project, but you should have enough paint on your palette so your brush doesn't dry out, especially when you're using a thin brush like mine with a very narrow tip. And I'm trying to do some delicate edges and some small designs like this. I need my brush tip to be smooth and wet. So unless you really need to wet the brush with some water, please don't use water. We don't want water on this because if there is any bit of excess water in your brush, it will just ruin the whole design. You can dampen your brush, so dip it into your cup of water and then you just dry it. That's it. Take a paper towel and dry it. All right. Okay, so that's one side of it, and I'm going to paint this side. All right, so that finishes the stem of leaves and the handle of the brush. Sorry, the wooden spoon. Okay, now we'll let that be dry and then carefully take the stand or whatever you're using to rest your spoon. Get rid of all the yellow paint because now we'll be using red. I'm dying to use some red because I've been painting with green and yellow and colors from the same family for the last 45 minutes. So I'm dying to use some red and see how it looks like. Okay, now on to the birds. Just making sure the brush tip is pointy. Now there is some more green. Green and red will not create a very happy color. Okay, all good. Now I'm using the red to paint the body of the birds, but for the wings, I will use a different color. Okay. Now, if you are painting, if you are using red, or let me think, if you're using a color like this on uh, on a contrasting base, you might see it appearing a little less bright. So because I'm using the red on top of the green, I can see that the red is not as bright as I would expect because the undertone is green. So it's like a dark greeny red that I can see here. So how to fix that? You just let your first coat dry and then apply a second coat. You can let that dry and you can apply a third coat as well. So you basically try to get rid of the undertone and make the paint as opaque as possible. Okay, so as you can see the two birds. Now I haven't drawn the wings yet. I'm going to draw that. So that I'll do with a different color, like I said. I will be using a bit of red, and with what I have handy, I will use a little bit of yellow to create an orange. Okay, so I've created an orange, and I'll use that for the wings. There's a lot of paint in my brush because I used it to mix the two colors. I'm trying to get rid of the excess paint. And now drawing the wings for the second bird. Okay, and that is how it looks like. All right, now I'll let that dry for a little bit and get rid of all the excess paint that I have on my brushes. All right, while I let that dry, I'll check on these ones that I painted, and these leaves in the handle of the spoon have dried. So they are now dry. So I'm going to take my Sharpie quickly and make an outline around the leaves. Okay, I'll show you what I mean. So this is what I'm doing. If you can see, it's a very small area. And I'm basically framing each of the leaves with my black marker. If you don't have this, that's totally fine. You can try this step with black paint if you have it. You need a very, very thin brush to be able to do it neatly with the paint. But yeah, it's not impossible. You can create this effect in another way as well. So you will still need black paint, and you first paint these designs that you created with black, including the leaves and the twig. And once the black dries completely, it's a very deep pigment, so you have to let it dry completely. Once it dries completely, you can paint yellow on top of it, leaving a narrow border of black. Okay, so that's how it looks like. Now I'll do the same for these. And if you're using a black marker, don't forget to create the eyes for the bird. Just a dot will be sufficient. You don't have to make any detailed eye with these sort of illustrations. Okay. So that completes the first section. Now I'll do the wings at the last, purely because the wings were drawn recently or painted recently and they're still drying. In the meantime, I'll do the other set of leaves and twig. Okay. And that is how it looks like. It looks very different. Once you create a border with a black marker or with black paint, it just comes out so well. And I'm going to take off this middle patch. And as a last step, I'll still use my marker and create a borderline here. Just some simple detailing. Okay. And that finishes the wooden spoon. So that is the top bit. If you like, you're welcome to put colors there. There's no end to what designs you can do and incorporate and improvise. So you can do a whole lot of things if you like. I'll leave this bit as is, just to create the break between a lot of greens that have been used in this project. And then that is the handle.